Now, the title of the conference and all of the speakers and its structure take for granted that there is a problem. There is a problem. That academic freedom is under various kinds of threat. But as many of you will know, not everyone agrees with that, especially on the political left. For that reason, we have selected speakers and participants without any conscious reference to which newspapers they read or who they vote for, solely on the ground of their expertise on and interest in the topic.
Most of the academics in the room have been through some form of the same fire, and it's very interesting seeing them trying to work out not just what happened, but what the answers are to these particular firestorms that occur. I think that there are serious problems in the universities, and there are a set of serious problems about how people can pursue truths in an era of social media mobs, deliberate misunderstandings, misrepresentation, defamation, and more.
Colleges should be safe spaces. Hold on. For ideas, not for feelings, right? This is what we are. Institutions of higher ed are about ideas, about the interchange of ideas. We are keepers of both tradition, yes, but also progress. Protectors of paradigms and anomalies, and overseers of both orthodoxy and heresy. So in that, you see a tension. How is it that we can do both without conflict? We can't. There will be conflict. Of course there will be conflict. And I think there was a difference, although many of the earlier protests from the 60s and such sounded similar in some ways. These protests now feel different, I think. That this is trying to eradicate everything that came before and not regarding either the legitimate part of the orthodoxy, the tradition that has made sense, to stand, nor to leave open voices that dissent from what is happening now.
I think the conference is great because it's confirmed my idea that a lot of these ideas that are taking over the academy, all these ideological movements that are taking over the academy are universal.
Our understanding now is that threats to academic freedom come from two entities. So it's from the public that gets really angry when journals like The Sun publish articles like that, but also from other academics who seem to struggle to handle intellectual disagreement. And I can assure you that it's not just people on the left that struggle with handling disagreement. It's also people on the right who struggle with that. I mean, I can tell you, nobody in the right stood up to defend my academic freedom when I was publishing an article, or on the left.
I think it's been a great conference, very intellectually stimulating, broad range of opinion, people drawn from all different academic disciplines, from sociology, education, humanities, hard science, law. So it's been a very eclectic, very heterodox, and obviously about a very serious issue.
I am a political scientist, so I can't help but look at this with my one eye looking towards democracy. And I think this has much broader ramifications than just academic freedom. And so I would put the academic freedom as a canary in the mine for what is happening in democracy in the world. It was Samuel Huntington, those of you in political science will know Samuel Huntington, who said that freedom and democracy are closely linked. And I think if freedom is going to decline, democracy is going to decline. And so one of the big questions in our field is democracy in regress. And I would actually argue that it's liberty and freedom that's regressing, and it's taking democracy with it.
This is the foundation of Western civilization. That's why my ancestors ran away from the Soviet Union, because it was a place they couldn't speak their mind, and when they did, they went to the Gulag. And I think that's an important freedom to protect. And that's why it's been great for me as a comedian to come to a place that, unlike comedy, actually a lot of people still agree with the principle of free speech. It's quite an interesting dynamic to see that.
Pretty much anything that we want that people talk about today. Sensitivity training began in 1946. The concept of institutional racism dates back to 1967. Microaggressions to 1974. Cultural appropriation, 1976. Critical race theory. First in 1981 and 1987 is really one. Intersectionality, 1980, 1989. The idea that words are violence, 1987. Safe spaces, starting in the 60s. Trigger warnings, again, starting in the 80s. So all of these things that we're talking about, none of these things that we're talking about today are things that came about suddenly in 2014 through 2016 or something like that. All of these concepts and paradigms were established by decades of institutionalization and activism across decades.
Nobody in the room thinks exactly as anyone else. I think politically there's significant diversity of political opinions, and as far as I can tell, some people with no particularly strong political opinions, but all with a commitment to being allowed to speak truth and to allow to investigate truths and to see where they take you. And if after these 2 days there can be a better understanding of how more people can survive in an era that isn't sympathetic to truth-seeking, in the institutions that are best set up to deal with truth-seeking, if some kind of best practice can be found, then this will be not just an interesting couple of days, but an important couple of days.